Hey guys, this is Stephanie and I am Stacks on Stacks on Stacks. Today I'm coming to you with my very late April wrap-up. April is a super busy month for me, so I actually pre-filmed all of my Spring to It videos in March, had them all edited and up ready to go because I knew April was going to be crazy busy, and it is the 15th and I am just now getting to my wrap-up. The problem is I'm looking at these books, some of these books I'm like, what was that about? What did I think about that again? Because it's been like 6 weeks since I've read it. So I'm just gonna get started on this. I'm sorry it's so late, you guys. I'm hoping that I will have books read this month so I can have a wrap-up next month, but we will just have to see. So the first book that I finished this month was The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. This is the 4th book in the Raven Boys cycle. Now here's the thing. I didn't really like this book that much. I loved the first 3 books. I gave them 5 stars. Like, we are on a journey, we're with a group of people, everybody has a purpose, everybody has something interesting, everybody's contributing to the over arc of the entire series. And then this book comes and ties it all up into a pile of crap. And it was just like, it was so underwhelming. It was so underwhelming. The problem is the other 3 books were so good. I still gave this a 3.5. I would say the first half of the book was good, but the second half, when they're trying to wrap things up, get closure, all that, it really, really did not work. I feel like I'm the only one saying this. Everybody else reads this series and they're like, oh, it's so great. And I would agree about the first 3 books. The 4th book, it just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work. So basically this is a book series. It's kind of hard to explain, honestly, but because it has a lot of facets to it. But it's a book series about a group of kids. The 4 boys are from a school called Aglenby, and it's a private boys school, and they are referred to as the Raven Boys. And they meet up with a girl named Blue. Now Blue comes from a family of fortune tellers, and she has no special power except that she kind of amplifies other people's special powers, but she really doesn't have any special power that she can call her own. And they are basically looking for this dead Welsh king who died on like a ley line, and if you find him, you get like a wish or something along those lines. So the first 3 books build up all of that plot, and you have extra characters coming in and they add to the plot and this and this and this. What I really didn't like about this end, not spoiling anything, is there are some characters that seriously get zero closure. There are some characters that have, like, they are in the midst of the big bad, and then we flash back to this other thing going on over here, and then you never flash back. You never know what happens to them, even though they're in the midst of this situation, and they just, boop, it's gone. They don't talk about it. They could have died. You don't know. They don't say anything. And I'm just like, that is a huge flaw. And these are secondary characters, but they're still somewhat important secondary characters. I'm not talking about like the person who comes in for the book and it's on 7 pages and says something that is just what they need to hear. No, I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about a character that's been in all 4 books and we don't get any closure at all. I was just like, are you kidding me? I felt like she was rushed and was like, well, it's going to only be 336 pages, so I got to cut some stuff out. So I don't know if I'll be reading much more Maggie Stiefvater if this is how she ends her series. I was not impressed. Gave it a 3.5 personally. I would say most of that came from my liking of the other books, and a 4.4, technically the writing is fine. It's just the ending that sucked. So that book did leave me in a bit of a bad mood, and I started The Forgetting by Sharon Cameron. I started this one because a friend of mine gave it to me like a year and a half ago, and I hadn't gotten to it, and then he gave me the sequel, and I was like, for Christmas, and I was like, yeah, I still need to read that one. So I read it, and I would say I liked this book. I gave it a 4.5 personally and a 4.5 technically. It was pretty good. It was also a very quick read, which was nice. I would say it was a very clever story, not one I've read before. It has some good twists and turns in it, and I did enjoy that. This is a book where our main character is named Nadia. Now, Nadia lives in this community where they keep their day-to-day occurrences. They record them in a little book that they keep around their neck. Now, everybody's book is their own. You don't give your book to other people. You don't let other people like write in it or see it or anything like that. You're basically recording all your memories because she's been told, at this point, she's probably like 10, 12 years old, something like that. So at this point, she's told that every 7 years, everybody loses all their memories, and then you pick up where you left off based on what you have written in your little book around your neck. So it starts with the first forgetting that she can remember. So I think a forgetting happened when she was an infant or a toddler or a baby, and her memory was wiped and she just didn't realize it. So the forgetting is about to happen at the beginning of the book, and it happens, and the twist is she doesn't forget. Now, she remembers everything, and that's kind of a problem because everybody's supposed to forget. So rather than tell like her parents, hey, this thing, she keeps it to herself because she doesn't feel like she can trust people and things like that. Well, the next forgetting is around the corner. So she's trying to solve the mystery of why she didn't forget and a few other things. I know that probably sounds pretty simple. There's more to that, but figuring out's half the fun. Quick read, good read. You'd probably enjoy it if you like adventure, YA, or a slight sci-fi-ish fantasy. The next book I read was 1984 by George Orwell. I didn't like this book, guys. I wanted to like it. I was told to read this book because it is like a classic and everybody's read it and it's so great. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. And I went to read it and I hated it. And I was really, really disappointed by that. I actually gave this a 2.0 personally and a 3.5 technically. The writing was fine. I just didn't like it. Now, for starters, I will say this book was super, super slow. Part of that's because of the period. It was written in like 1960. Books were written differently back then, so they're usually a slower read. Unless your name was Agatha Christie, and apparently you can write anything and it's amazing. But this book was slow and it was wordy. Like they just, so many words, which is actually amusing because there's a concept they call doublespeak in the book, which basically is communicate what you're trying to think with as few words as possible. They would take words out of the English language that was spoken to like better convey things and be more efficient and things like that. Yet the book was so wordy, I'm like, that is ironic. Now there is lots of world building in this book and very little plot. Now the thing is, this isn't even that long of a book, but it was painful for me to finish. I wanted to DNF it, but I was like, no. I want to finish this book so I can know what all the hoopla is about. And I don't know what all the hoopla is about. Like I said, lots of world building, very little character development. Now I can see why people would say that this is a classic, which is why the tech score is a little bit higher. I just think this is not the type of book that I enjoy reading. Basically in this book, we are following a man named Winston who lives in this society in 1984, which was futuristic at the time, and it is a very communist driven society. They're very controlling of what people think, what people say, what people are viewing visually, things like that. Like you can't just go on a date with somebody and have a relationship with somebody organically. You could probably marry somebody they ordained you to marry. Everything down to the sex that you have, the conversations you have, and your thoughts is controlled and regimented. And it sounds like a very horrible society in which I think I would rather die than live in. Then there's this small sect of people that are rebelling against the man. That's where that term came from, by the way. The man, that term came from this book. I don't know that. I know it now. So there's this small sect that are like, we aren't going to live that way. Now, I do believe that they like take random members from this place and they like torture them and stuff like that. And you would be like, oh, well, torture. I would just give up and I would die or I would fight. The torture in this book was like torture. And I was like, this is horrible. Like it was torture to read about it. So I'm sure it'd be torture to experience it. So the book in whole was about what would happen if we let communism take over the earth and how it would get worse and worse and worse. And I get that. I mean, I understand that. I don't think I needed to read like 200 pages to understand that that lifestyle would suck. Like rocks through a garden hose. It would be the worst. So I am super glad if you like that book and if it's your favorite book and if you could just base your life off that book. Congratulations to you. It was not for me. So I was in such a mood after I finished that book. Like for starters, it took me almost a week to get through it. And I switched to the audiobook and it was no help. No help. So I was in a mood when I finished it and I was like, I spent 6 days reading this crap book. And I was la 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 la. So I decided I needed to laugh. I need something funny. So I got on Overdrive and I wanted to listen to a comedian read a book. And the first one that I saw that was available at that very second was Unqualified by Anna Faris. This was actually pretty funny. I'm not sure what I was expecting. I think I've seen Anna Faris in like 2 movies and I like her fine. I don't think I have an opinion on her. I don't. Like she seems fine. She's funny. I feel like she gets typecast a lot and that's, you know, too bad, but I guess it is what it is. So I wasn't sure what to expect from this exactly. All I know is that she was married to Chris Pratt. That's like all I really knew about her and she was in a couple movies that I saw. This is actually pretty funny. Oh, I have my bookmark in there still. I ended up giving it a 3.8 personally and about a 3.0 technically. The writing wasn't like stellar, but it wasn't terrible. And it's funny because she pokes fun at herself for her writing during the whole book. She's like, yeah, I'm not a writer. I'm not qualified to do this, but I'm doing this. Thank you. Which turned out to be pretty funny. I mean, people who can laugh at themselves, always funny. And I wouldn't say that this is like a gut-splitting funny. I would say it's moderately funny. And I walked away from this book feeling like I actually knew Anna Faris a little bit better, like personally. And she sounds like a super interesting person. Like, I think I would enjoy having dinner with her. She does a lot of advising in here. She loves to advise people, like, if this is happening, don't do that. Don't stay with him, this and this. And I enjoyed that. I thought it was refreshing. And she seems so normal. She seemed like a normal person writing a book. And that just reminds me, you know, celebrities are normal people too. They just have a lot more money and they're in the media a lot. So anything they do that could be considered like weird is extra weird because it's in the media and they have so much money. They shouldn't be weird. Well, guys, aren't we all weird? I mean, I know I'm weird. I would hate it if there's paparazzi outside my door. There'd be so many shots of like, boy, she's fat. How many necks does she have? Blah, blah, blah. And I would just be like, I quit. I don't want to be famous. I don't think they can quit. I bet someone wish they could though. But all in all, I would say that this was a good book to listen to. Like, I did enjoy it. It got me out of my grumpy mood. So hoorah for that. And then she talks about her podcast a little bit and her TV show called Mom. So I watched the first few episodes of Mom. It was pretty funny. I haven't had a lot of time to watch TV the last few months. So it's something I'll watch probably in the summer when I have more time. And I listen to maybe like 1 or 2 bits of podcasts, and I actually like her on the podcast too. She's very smart. She asks smart questions, and yeah, so I think this is a fun read. I'm glad I read it. The next book I read is Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wen. This was a serious book. So I don't know what I was expecting exactly going into this because I didn't know a ton about it, but it is a very serious book, and I think I was expecting somewhat serious, but it's YA, and YA doesn't usually get too serious, but they got serious. But I would say this was also a wonderful book. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 technically and a 4.5 personally. It is a book that I'll probably reread, though I don't know when, because it also had some hard to read parts in it. So I will have to think about that. But it is a book I think I'd read again. I'll definitely read more books by this author because I really enjoyed this. I would say Elizabeth Wen really knows how to put humor into a humorless situation. Basically, this book takes place during World War II in France. And we have 2 girls that are from Great Britain. One is Scottish and one is English. And one is a spy and one is a pilot, and the plane goes down in France, which is being occupied by Germany. One of them is found by the Germans and one of them is found by the French resistance. And the kind of twist is you don't know which is which. I would laugh on one page, I would cry on the next. This was a book that it just takes a good writer to do that. It takes a good writer to make you laugh and then cry and then laugh again. And this was a book I felt like did not apologize for it being a war. Like, they didn't feel like, and we have to make this thing okay that it happened that way. There's a lot that goes on in war that is not okay, and they state that, and that's really good. So if you like World War II, if you like historical fiction, you will like this book. If you like books that are flowery and happy and contemporary, you might not like it, but it's still a really good book. The next book I read this month is Poison Study by Maria V. Schneider. This is a book that I started, got a third of the way through, like probably 2 years ago. I don't know why I put it down because I super duper enjoyed it. I did start it back from the beginning though because it had been so long since I had read this book. I gave this a 4.1 personally and a 4.8 technically because I had a few problems with this book. Basically in this book we are following a girl named Yelena, and she is up on death row. Now this kind of takes place in like a king and queen kind of setting. When you're on death row in this city, before they execute you, they will offer to let you be the king's food taster if there is one needed, and you can take that position instead of being hung or however they kill you. Now she is in here for murder. All we know is that there's like this lord over this area and she has killed his son. She didn't deny killing his son. She didn't admit to killing his son. She actually didn't say anything when she was taken in for his murder. But when she's offered to be the king's poison taster, she says, okay. Now the Lord guy is super mad that she's not getting killed, and he's like throwing a fit and demanding that she be killed. But she finds out she's actually a pretty good poison taster. She stands up well to certain poisons. She doesn't get sick all the time, and she can taste them really well and has a very good palate. So it's a job she just happens to be good at. One thing I do like about Yelena is she is feisty and smart and incredibly self-sufficient. Like, she can be chased and get herself into a pickle, and you know what? She can get herself out of it. So I really like that. There are a few times that she kind of gets rescued, you could say, but I feel like she's super self-sufficient and she would have figured it out anyway. I really did enjoy this book, but I had a few problems with it, like I said. First of all, I didn't know there was any romance in this book, so when there was romance, I was kind of like, eh. And I was really expecting like a 5-star read with this too. So I didn't know there was any romance in this book. So when I found out there was romance in it, I was kind of like, eh, pass. The romance really wasn't well written in my opinion. I didn't care for it. Partially because it's romance and I'm not big on that in books, but the other part is it wasn't very well written. The rest of the book was, but the romance, I was kind of like, yeah, that's not believable at all. I also, on a side note, had a very hard time believing any of these characters were teenagers. Just like Six of Crows, I couldn't believe those guys were teenagers. I don't believe these guys are teenagers either. So my big problem I had with this, and it's a tiny spoiler, is that our main character, Yelena, had been raped, I think a few times. And they go into one of those scenes and it was horrible. And I was like, I don't want to read this. I don't want to read this. I don't want to read this. And I read it. I don't know why. But that was years ago. And then she starts this romantic relationship with a guy. Here's the thing, when a girl has been through something like that, she is traumatized. And no matter how sweet or great or classy this guy is, or how long he's willing to wait or whatever, she will have a hard time having sexual intercourse with another man because she's been raped. She's had an experience. So even if it's like, no, I'm okay with this, let's go. There's a mental part to that they don't talk about at all in this book. There's a part of a person that has been through trauma like that will have a very hard time doing that again. I feel like that is obvious. She should have done some reading about it because I found that very, very, very much fell flat. In addition to which, I feel like she shouldn't have rushed her into that relationship with that person because that's just not how it would work. And I really had a hard time. That left a very sour taste in my mouth. If you're going to be that graphic about a scene to communicate that she's been through that kind of trauma, you need to be ready to deal with the backlash that trauma like that is going to leave with somebody. So maybe it will get dealt in the next 2 books. I'll probably read them despite the fact that really put a sour taste in my mouth. And I was like, this was a near 5. Even with the romantic relationship that I didn't like, it was a near 5. But if she would not have made her a rape victim that was completely okay with having sex with other people, then I think I would have given it a 5. But that knocked it down almost an entire point because I was like, no, that's not what it is. The last one that I read this month was Sandman Overture by Neil Gaiman. And I did like it. It was really weird. And it took me like a month to get through it because I'm like, this is weird. This is so weird. I did like it once I got done with it. The payoff was definitely good. But getting through it was so hard. I gave it like a 2.2 personally and like a 3.2 technically. I'm going to continue on the series, see if I like it. But I don't know. And it's really hard to describe too. So I'm actually not even going to try because even though I've read it, I don't think I can describe it. I know. But that is it. Those are the 7 books that I read in the month of April. Please comment down below if you've read any of these or if you have questions about any of these. I'd love to discuss them with you in the comments. Don't forget to like and don't forget to subscribe. And I will just plan on seeing you guys tomorrow because I have a video coming up every day this month during April. Watch them all. Goodbye. This is a book where our I can't even talk. Main character.